it's also crazy because, like, what's crazy about it is that there's already been a black white supremacist school and a white female school also from the same teragram. So even if they were even if they were trans, they're still a Nazi. Yeah, trans people can be Nazis too. But it turns out they're not even trans. They're a detransitioner. But let's get back to the Minneapolis and the lies that are being spread everywhere, and the dangerous lies that are all over this news story, because a lot of people are actively propagandizing against trans people.
I'm going to begin with this terrible story, the deadly mass in Minneapolis, and the families of the two children who were killed. 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, we now know their names, 10-year-old Harper Moisky. Fletcher's father said this about his son, that he loved fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play. Harper's family said in a statement that she was bright, she was joyful, and she was deeply loved. Police say that the shooter fired repeatedly into a church where children and adults were celebrating morning mass. They were in the middle of prayers. 18 other people were wounded. We'll have more on those victims in just a moment, but first we're going to go to Usher Qureshi. He's in Minneapolis. He's been following this investigation. Usher, the story is heartbreaking to all of us.
Good morning, Gail. Well, law enforcement sources tell CBS News the was in the church here at Annunciation Catholic School just a few weeks ago. The told an employee the visit was to reconnect with faith. Investigators now believe the shooter used that visit to conduct surveillance ahead of the deadly attack.
Yeah, major motivation here is, or the reason why the shooter targeted this church was because he was a part of this school, this part of the congregation as well. So, like, that's at least according to law enforcement, the latest updates is that. One thing that I find particularly strange, by the way, is that they're saying that there was no discernible motive, which I find very odd. And I think the reason why they're saying that is because, like, the shooter's politics, if you're not tapped into the brain rot in a lot of these, like, super radical, edgy, meme adjacent, esoteric, white supremacist, neo-Nazi circles, is like impossible to contend with. You're like, I don't understand. It's brain breaking for someone like myself, and I'm brain rotted, right? I know all this shit, and it's still brain rotting when we dive into the underbelly of the Order of Nine Angles and all of those other, like, subsidiary decentralized terror cells that operate on Telegram, also known as broadly Terrorgram, right? So it's difficult to have, boomer vision on this kind of thing and then try to make sense of this, because it just comes across as so senseless, even if you are knowledgeable about, like, where this comes from, right? So I do still think that this is inappropriate for the law enforcement authorities to say that there's no, like, decipherable motive here beyond, like, wanting to kill children. That's what they said, because it is a part of the radicalization funnel, if not at the direct edge of the radicalization funnel. Like, this is the complete edge. Like, this is even beyond, like, the Nick Fuentes groypers and shit like that you see on Instagram, on Twitter, and all over these places. Like, these guys are even crazier than they are, where their goals are to just basically do these kinds of mass shootings. So, this is unfortunately not something that passes the bus driver test. And therefore, a lot of people are failing to cover this in the correct way. Having said that, there's also, obviously, the charlatans, mostly on the right, that have used this as an opportunity to hit back at trans people and shit like that, and claim that this is an issue born out of transness, when the shooter, by his own admission, is a detransitioner, most likely, okay, and was clearly right-wing, like demonstrably right-wing. They're saying this is like a lib trans person that wanted to kill Donald Trump and was woke or whatever, and that's why he targeted Christians. All of that is bullshit, okay? All of that is complete bullshit, because the shooter was a detransitioner, very clearly in, like, the firmly committed to, like, the far right space of politics. What is the evidence that she was detrans? What do you mean she? Bro, you are so wrong on this. People are so funny because you see who are like, who actively and deliberately try to misgender people, turning around and like accidentally correctly gendering people in the process because they think they're trans. And then this is, I guess, the other side of it. The reason why I'm saying that the shooter was most likely a detransitioner, as in someone who, in most circumstances, due to social pressure, goes back to the sex that they were assigned at birth after going through the at least the beginning stages of gender confirmation. No evidence? What do you mean no evidence? It's in the manifesto. What are we talking about? Most likely law? Bitch, even Fox News. Read why you are wrong rather than assuming. Dude, he had Donald Trump on the magazine. What are you talking about? He also had 6 million Jews weren't enough and the N-word on the magazine. And you know what else he had on his gun and all over his gear? Far-right white nationalist mass shooters. What the? And I read the manifesto, or at least piece of the manifesto. You clearly didn't. How stupid are these to be like, well, he said, the shooter said Trump, so obviously woke libtard. Oh man, how nice. How wonderful to exist in the confines of this idiocy. A perfectly wrapped up bow for you to just be like, nah, you don't understand. The shooter is actually a woke gay libtard. You don't know anything. Instead of saying, read why you're wrong, how about you send me some source that isn't like, so a woke trans that is conservative? Okay. Dog, we live in a universe where 2 failed Trump assassins were either people that had voted for Donald Trump or people that literally were registered Republicans. What the are you talking about? It's clear that even when they're Trump, more often than not, they might have either been a Trump supporter in the past or are still probably a Trump voter before they get their shit blown off. What do you mean? Saying that someone wants to kill Donald Trump doesn't mean anything. The synagogue shooter under Trump 1 was a Trump voter. Okay? The synagogue shooter under Trump 1 was a literal Trump voter and Trump supporter. But he had outgrown Trump. He had actually been more further radicalized than Trump because Trump wasn't doing enough by his own admission on Gab about the Jewish problem. He voted for Trump, he loved Trump, and he thought that Jews were doing unfiltered, unrestricted third world migration into the United States of America, doing the great replacement, something that Tucker Carlson and Trump has also said. What about a mole for the Democratic Party? Can you think for yourself? Wait, what? A mole for the Democratic Party? What are you talking? Wait, what? A mole for the Democratic Party? What does that even mean? I mean, you're calling into question whether I'm capable of independent thought, but I don't even think you're capable of any thought.
The shooter wanted to kill defenseless children.
Police say the shooter couldn't see the hundreds of students and staff inside Annunciation Catholic School as bullets shattered the stained glass church windows Wednesday. The first 911 calls came at 8:27 a.m.
A Minneapolis police officer ran into the church and was met by a parishioner who directed him towards where the gunman had been.
The shooter, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, died from a self-inflicted gunshot.
It's so funny that even Ben Shapiro admits he's a detransitioner. The shooter was a transgender regret case. And chatters in here are like, nah, dude. Nah, still trans to me, brother. Okay.
Investigators are pouring through hundreds of journal pages left behind, filled with disturbing messages.
The shooter's heart was full of hate.
Approximately 116 rifle rounds, 3 shotgun shells, and a live handgun round that police believe jammed in the chamber were found at the...
It's also crazy because, like, what's crazy about it is that there's already been a black white supremacist school shooter and a white female school shooter, also from the same terragram. So even if they were trans, they're still a Nazi. Yeah, trans people can be Nazis too. But it turns out they're not even trans. They're a detransitioner. Fascism has evolved. Its most loyal servants are no longer reflective of the core white supremacist identity. They're still white supremacists in their ideology, but they can be Hispanic, for example. I mean, the most famous neo-Nazi in the country is literally a Hispanic dude, brother. His name is Nicolas Fuentes. And in here are like, dude, what are you talking about? Another incredibly famous open neo-Nazi is Kanye West. He's black. What are we doing?
Scene illegally purchased weapons.
The solutions are very clear.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar represents Annunciation's district. She's pushing for stricter gun laws.
We can't legislate the intent that people have, but we can make sure that they do not have the resources to be able to carry out their monstrous intent.
It's a deep hurt. There's anger. There's questioning.
Principal Matthew DeBoer spoke to CBS Evening News co-anchor Maurice Dubois about meeting with the victims' families.
What'd you tell them? I told them that I was there, and I held their kids' hands. And I told them that their parents loved them, that I loved them, and I gave them a kiss. And it was hard. But they deserved to know that someone was with their kids in that time when their lives were stolen from them.
Those stolen lives belong to 10-year-old Harper Moisky and 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel.
We will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming.
Jesse Merkel honored his son Thursday.
Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life.
Ross said, do you ever cover anything that's not sad so I can come on stream? And I said, no, because the world is sad, brother. Sorry. It's just everything sucks.
Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us.
Just an incredibly powerful statement. Jesse Merkel also shared a message of hope that we want you to hear. Remember, this is just one day after his son was killed.
I'm hopeful that all the wounded are able to make a full recovery and return home to their families. And finally, all the people, and especially the children, impacted by this horrific event are able to recover mentally and find strength to live loving, happy, and full lives.
Usher, thank you. What a powerful thing for him to say, considering the pain he's feeling. Anger and hurt is what a lot of us are feeling at this moment. Thank you so much.
The FBI has released new details on the Minnesota school shooting as a memorial continues to grow outside the Annunciation Catholic School. 2 children, an 8 and a 10-year-old, were murdered in the tragedy, and in total, 15 children were injured, with at least 9 still in the hospital and 1 that remains in critical condition. The parents of these victims continue to look for some form of answers, but police say one close family member to the shooter is leaving everyone in the dark. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno, and also joining us today, Molly Line, Fox News correspondent, Tommy Lahren, Fox News contributor and host of Tommy Lahren is Fearless on Outkick and FoxNews.com. And joining us on the couch for the very first time is Tiffany Smiley, founder of the Endeavor PAC and former U.S. Senate candidate, and Guy Benson, Fox News contributor and the host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Now, Minneapolis police say the shooter was obsessed with killing children and carried out the massacre to gain notoriety. Police say he fired 116 rounds with a rifle and 3 with a shotgun. Fox News confirms the shooter's mother, who previously worked at the school where the shooter attacked, has hired a criminal defense attorney. Now, police say they have not been able to interview her. Watch.
We do know that the shooter did attend Mass there previously. The shooter did attend school, and the shooter's mother was an employee of the parish previously for some time. So obviously there is a connection between that shooter and this particular parish. I know we have not been successful in talking to the shooter's mother yet at this time, but there continue to be efforts made to get that done.
The mother's attorney gave Fox News Digital this statement, quote, "She is completely distraught about the situation and has no culpability, but is seeking an attorney to deal with calls like this." And now FBI Director Kash Patel says investigators have collected enough evidence that points directly to an act of domestic terrorism motivated by a hate-filled ideology. An absolutely tragic situation, Tiffany. As we learn more, it appears we won't be learning more from the mother of the shooter.
Yeah, well, I mean, first, this senseless act of violence is absolutely gut-wrenching. It just hits you hard. I'm a mom of 3 boys who just started Catholic school, and my whole heart and prayers goes out.
I'm just realizing now.
To
So this administration, first of all, of course, Fox is not going to say that this was a fucking far-right neo-Nazi, even though it clearly is, right? But considering that this admin is entertaining, tackling whatever like personal pet projects that they have to advance the culture war, which includes, of course, like targeting and identifying and actively harming marginalized identities, trans people being one of them. I can totally see them trying to present this as like, oh, the mother was a woke libtard who transified their son, and like that's the reason why she's responsible for this anti-Catholic hate crime. I really hope that that's not the direction that they go towards, but I can totally see them doing that and then try to create a legal precedent to actively go after parents. Stop giving them ideas. Come on, man. Come on. This is not me giving them ideas. This is just like something that I'm seeing the administration has within the realm of possibility, something that they could use. There's already a legal precedent for like prosecuting shooters' family members for good reason, by the way, especially when the shooter is underage. But I can totally see them doing this for something that has never been done before, which is the idea that like if you're trans, you automatically are more likely, like with the claim that like if you're trans, you're automatically more likely to be violent, which is of course false, but it doesn't matter. They won't stop themselves from advancing this fucking statement, and then say that like there will be criminal prosecution for any parent anywhere in the country that allows their children to engage in like gender confirmation or hormone blockers. That legislation already exists. This would like additionally criminalize it.
the parents, to the kids, to the teachers, and even to the shooter's mom. I can't imagine the weight of the world that is on her shoulders, the responsibility. I don't think any of us can fathom what perhaps she is feeling in this moment. While I would like to see her cooperating with law enforcement, I would like to see her put out a statement to her lawyer, I think it's going to take time. And I just can't imagine the place that she is in. But as we go along, she's going to have to communicate and work with law enforcement to get to the bottom of this. And I would hope that she could put something out sooner than later, just for everyone in the community.
Yeah, your compassion is so generous. And we should, again, remind viewers, she was part of the community too, the Annunciation community.
Yeah, so you think about this as a parent, and you've lost your kid, which is unimaginable and horrendous. And then with that, compounding the grief and the confusion and perhaps the anger is the fact that your kid also murdered other kids in the process of this horrific atrocity. So there is some sense of empathy that I feel. That being said, if there were signs that were missed, I'm sure she's probably thinking about this all the time. If she should have known something or did know something, we need to know that. And I do think it's important for her to cooperate with law enforcement. She doesn't have to talk to us in the media. I understand that. But law enforcement, she should cooperate with, because if she's distraught, which I'm sure she is, I think she owes this to herself and especially to the families of the victims of her son to help law enforcement to the greatest extent possible. And if she's not doing that, especially a few days from now, I think that's a problem.
And Molly, perhaps is there some type of fear of legal retribution that is obfuscating her willingness to cooperate so that everyone in our collective grief over this can, yes, learn something to prevent it from ever happening again?
There have been a number of parents in the course of these similar tragedies, mass shootings, that have been prosecuted in the wake of them. There was most notably the Crumbleys, Jennifer and James Crumbly. They were the first parents to be prosecuted. Their son was a minor when he committed his acts, killing 4 students. That was at the Oxford High School. But there have also been parents who've been charged, sons in these cases, committed mass killings that when they were adults. There were several examples. The father of the Nashville Waffle House shooter, that individual that committed the shooting was 29 years old at the time of the shooting at the Waffle House. The father of a man who killed 7 people that happened at a 4th of July parade in 2022 in Illinois, the Highland Park shooting. That shooter at the time of the shooting was an adult as well. In the case of that particular father, he signed his son's application for an Illinois firearms identification card 3 years before the massacre. He was ultimately pleading guilty to 7 counts of misdemeanor reckless conduct. So parents have faced culpability when similar actions have occurred. And perhaps she might be thinking a little bit about this. But if you have a lawyer, you could also use that lawyer perhaps to express some empathy for the victims.
Right. And it's surprising, frankly, just as a bystander here, Tommy, that there haven't been communication directly with law enforcement, considering that on the day of that tragedy, within minutes after that person was identified, then she would have been brought in to Guy's Point too. It was part of the right. Yeah.
This feels odd. And it's hard not to feel like it's odd to not even have an interview. I understand getting yourself an attorney because you want to protect yourself, to your point, and I think that that's understandable. What's not is not cooperating, especially with law enforcement. To your point, Guy, she doesn't necessarily owe us, the public, anything, but you owe law enforcement something and you owe these families something. I can't help but think, going back to the Gabby Petito case and Brian Laundrie's family, I can't help but think that when they were not cooperating with police, but they immediately got a criminal defense attorney and they said, you can talk to him. We're not saying anything. We're not going to talk about it. This feels to me eerily similar. I'm not saying that she has any culpability. I'm sure she doesn't. She was living in another state. However, if you do feel like you need a defense attorney, you still need to cooperate with police. You owe the community that much. And by her not doing that, I think a lot of the empathy that all of you feel for her, that's going to dissipate in the public eye pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's such a good point, the public perception versus legal culpability, and the reality that I think that the public understands, you know, there's a level of support that one has for their children that is not to be confused with the culpability of their nefarious intentions. And it seems like there hasn't been a judgmental approach to this horrific situation that we know of at this point.
Right. Well, and you got to think, as a mother, you take that responsibility on. And I'm sure she is feeling that. But like I said, and to your point, Tommy, she should put out a statement through her lawyer to the community, to the victims, and show that she is sympathetic and that she cares. I think that would go a long way.
Yeah. Guy, final thoughts?
Well, I think in some respects she sort of did in that lawyer statement where she said she's distraught, okay,
yes,
and that bears no culpability. That's an assertion of innocence. I'm more open to that assertion if I know that she's cooperating with law enforcement versus not, personally.
Right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and